So I just uploaded a video reacting to the release of the All-NBA teams. That's going to be uploading right now. It's a bit longer. I'm trying to keep my videos shorter, around the 4 to 5 minutes that I used to do. The reaction was about 12 minutes. I don't expect people to actually watch that because it was too long. This video is going to be much shorter. I'm just going to be talking about 6 or 7 All-NBA snubs. And let's start off the list with the one that everyone wants to talk about. Let's just start with Jayson Tatum, because at this point, I think it's safe to say he's a top 15 player in the NBA, if not a top 12 guy. I don't know if I put him top 10. I don't think I'm going to go there yet, but he's definitely tracking that way. And this was his best season, or at least arguably his best season of his career. 26.4 points per game, 7.4 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists, career high. Well, actually, no, second in his career in field goal percentage with 45.9%, 38.6% from three, which is pretty good considering he's shooting about 7.6 threes per night. So great outside shooter, maybe not great, but really good outside shooter, significantly improving in other areas of the game. He set a career high in field goal percentage from the free throw line. You have to love where Jayson Tatum is trending. And I think the initial thought is if you're going to put someone off the third team to put Jayson Tatum on it, it's going to be Paul George. It's not going to be Jimmy Butler. I'm a Heat fan. I won't do that to Jimmy. So it's going to have to be Paul George if we're going to make that replacement. But if you're looking at what Tatum's done, even consider the playoffs, I know it's a regular season process, so you're not supposed to consider the playoffs, but you saw what he's capable of when he needs to score buckets against a team like the Nets to carry his team for a chance to win. Tatum is one of the most impactful players in the league right now because he's playing on a premier franchise that's capable of making the playoffs every year, but it's underperforming significantly, at least this year was. And you have injuries to Kemba Walker, injuries to Jaylen Brown when it comes time for the playoffs, and Tatum is still out there competing at an All-NBA level, and so for him not to get awarded an All-NBA selection is going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. Another person I want to talk about, Kevin Durant. I know Kevin Durant only played 35 games, so I'm not going to sit here and argue that he should be on the All-NBA team. But I am going to say that LeBron James was on the second All-NBA team playing 45 games when Durant played 35. It was not on there. So 45 for LeBron, All-NBA second team. 35 for Durant, not on the All-NBA teams at all. Just want to point that out because he basically averaged 27 points per game, about 7 rebounds, and 5.6 assists per night. And you know he's doing 45% from three. That's what he shot. This guy is 6'11" with arms that extend out to who knows how many feet in the air. This guy is tremendous from every area of the offensive game. And the Nets, for the most part, are playing small ball right now. They don't have a true center out there on the court. Durant's probably the biggest player for the Mountain Court most of the time. So I'm just looking at this and saying, you can certainly make an argument for him to be on the All-NBA third team, even though playing 35 games and getting that kind of selection would be a little bit ludicrous. Speaking of the Brooklyn Nets, though, let's talk about another player from the team that got snubbed, James Harden. I know Kyrie Irving made the All-NBA third team, so maybe that smooths over the feelings of Brooklyn Nets fans, maybe. But Harden was more impactful for the Nets when he was on the court than Kyrie Irving, and here's why. Because Kyrie Irving is primarily a scorer, but James Harden, who used to primarily be a scorer, is also capable of being a tremendous top-tier facilitator. He averaged over 10 assists per game this year on both Houston and Brooklyn, so it's not that he was just doing it during his time in Brooklyn. He was also doing it in Houston. 24.6 points per game. That's obviously a significant drop-off from where he's been in the past in Houston, where he's been the main scoring option. But 7.9 rebounds this year, he's averaging that per game. 10.8 assists, 24.6 points, 1.2 steals. I mean, come on, guys. If you're going to put Kyrie Irving on there, I think you have a legit argument to put James Harden ahead of him. And I know that Harden missed a ton of games, but remember when he was healthy, and same arguments for LeBron, because LeBron played 45 games, James Harden played 44. These guys were at the top of the MVP conversation before getting injured. Both of them. They were both in about the same spot. So I don't want to hear LeBron makes the All-NBA second team and James Harden gets nothing. It just does not make sense to me how that happens. Maybe it's just because the forward pool was not stacked as much this year as the guard pool. I could understand that argument. But at the same time, Harden getting absolutely nothing just does not seem right to me when he was so well-rounded for the Brooklyn Nets this year and such a huge part of what they were doing. The next snub I want to talk about here, let me just make sure I scroll to the next player. I think Utah Jazz fans are probably sick and tired of some disrespect that Donovan Mitchell is getting. This guy goes out there, gets you 26.4 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, and 5.2 assists while shooting about 38.6% from three, 43.8% from the field. I'm not saying that he is a uber elite guard. He's not on the level of someone like James Harden. I wouldn't put him on the level of someone like Kyrie. But for the year, and I know there are people who will say that technically the numbers say that Rudy Gobert was more impactful than Donovan Mitchell, and they're not really wrong. The numbers do say that. But from a fan perspective, and I know that's not necessarily what you want to hear in these kind of arguments, but Donovan Mitchell certainly deserves to be in this conversation because of everything he accomplished, because of the fact that he was so impactful in this team. He was the offensive playmaker for these guys, and it is a very, very well-rounded team. But you look at some of the respect that some of these guys are getting out there, other than Donovan Mitchell, he's not even being mentioned in these conversations for the most part. It just doesn't feel right to leave him out of these discussions, at least as much to the little what we do. He really is a good player, and he gets left out of these talks way too much. I was trying to find stats because there was a Jazz fan yelling at me on Twitter the other day. I was trying to find their tweets. They brought up an interesting stat. I can't find it now, unfortunately. Oh, here it is. All right, so he's only the second player in the last 20-plus years that finished the season on the first seed and averaged 26 points per game and didn't win the MVP, and he's not even going to make an All-NBA team. That's what this guy said at Utah Jazzman47 on Twitter, and he's correct. He did not make an All-NBA team. So, man, I have pointed out they probably wouldn't at the time, but he's right. I mean, he's got some impressive numbers there. It's hard to argue with that. Another guy I want to bring up, Zion Williamson. Not everyone's favorite player because he's very limited offensively for now. Can't really shoot from the outside. The mid-range game has to improve as well. But 27 points per game, 7.2 rebounds per game, 3.7 assists. Extreme efficiency, 61.1% from the field because, again, he's shooting layups most of the time. I understand that maybe the way he plays the game makes you not view him in the level of a top 15 player right now. I can understand that. But extreme efficiency on the offensive end, the scoring is ridiculous how he does it. I think there's certainly a debate to be had here for Zion Williamson being an All-NBA third-teamer. Not ahead of Tatum, though. Tatum's not even on there, so I can understand why people say, let's not bring him up in this discussion at all. But leaving him out of the discussion just doesn't feel right. So I have to throw Zion Williamson up there. And the last one I want to talk about, if I can find the page, is Russell Westbrook. And I understand that Russell Westbrook up there with Paul George in terms of being one of the most hated guys in the NBA. Whether it's deserved or not, that's up to you. But people do not like Russell Westbrook. And I will say this. I have no issues with Bradley Beal being on the All-NBA team ahead of Russell Westbrook because even though Westbrook led the league in assists per game with 11.7, he averaged triple-double yet again. The efficiency is not nearly as good as what you can get from most typical guards. He's not a great three-point shooter. He's not really a viable three-point shooter yet, in my opinion. He's still, for his career, only shooting about 30.5% from three, and this past year was not much better than that. So you have some issues there. He shot about at his career average from the field this year. And again, like I said, the scoring is just so inconsistent from him. Yes, he's a great facilitator, don't get me wrong, but he also led the NBA in turnovers this year. So there's a lot of good and a lot of bad with him. And I'm at a point where he has to be in these discussions. Yes, he does. He deserves it. He deserves to be an all-star. He deserves to be talked about in this category as being a top 15 player. But if he's left off this kind of list, if he's left off the All-NBA teams, it's not the most disastrous thing out there. So these are just a few snubs I want to talk about, just to reiterate the names. Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Donovan Mitchell, and make sure I remember the rest, Zion Williamson, and yes, Jayson Tatum. Thank you all for tuning in. Go check out some of my other videos. I have much shorter videos. It's just pushing 9 minutes again. I want to do a 5-minute video, but it's at 9 minutes again. Thank you all for watching if you did. Go check out me out on Twitter. I have a link in the description for that. And I also have an article where I predicted the NBA teams. I will leave a link for that also in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope to see you guys in the future.